Imagine reaching into your wallet to pay for your morning coffee at the local diner, only to realize the penny, the coin you've tossed into jars for years, is gone for good. President Trump has just announced the end of the penny, calling it wasteful, and it's stirring up big questions. Will this save taxpayers money? Could it raise prices at the store? And most importantly, how might this affect your Social Security checks, grocery bills, or retirement savings? Friends, this change is coming, and it could touch your wallet in ways you don't expect. Stick with me today as we break it all down in simple terms, so you can protect your hard-earned money. What do you think about losing the penny? Will you miss it, or is it time to say goodbye? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to stay updated on changes that impact your retirement. What's happening with the penny? Let's start with the big news. On February 9, 2025, President Trump posted on Truth Social that he's instructed the U.S. Treasury to stop making new pennies. Why? Because it costs more to make a penny than it's worth. According to the U.S. Mint's 2024 annual report, it costs 3.69 cents to produce 1 penny. That's right, a penny worth just 1 cent costs nearly 4 times as much to make. In 2024, the Mint produced 3.22 billion pennies, losing 85.3 million in the process. Over the past 19 years, the cost to make a penny has always been higher than its value, costing taxpayers millions each year. The Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, highlighted this on X, stating that in 2023, pennies cost taxpayers $179 million. President Trump called this wasteful and wants to cut this expense from the federal budget, 1 penny at a time. The plan is to stop producing new pennies by early 2026, with the final order for penny blanks placed in May 2025. Businesses will likely round cash transactions to the nearest 5 cents, meaning a $4.98 coffee might cost $5 or $4.95, depending on the rules. Why is the penny so expensive to make? You might be wondering, how can a tiny coin cost so much? It's because of something called seigniorage, the difference between what a coin costs to make and its face value. For pennies, the seigniorage is negative, meaning the government loses money on everyone. The main culprit is the cost of materials, like zinc, which makes up most of a penny, with a thin copper coating. Zinc prices have gone up due to inflation, which raises the cost of everything: workers' wages, mining equipment, and energy to run the mint. In 2024, inflation pushed the cost of producing a penny up by 20.2% from the previous year. This isn't a new problem. The U.S. Mint has been losing money on pennies for nearly 2 decades. For example, in 2006, the cost was already 1.23 cents per penny, and it's only gotten worse. The nickel is in trouble too. It costs 13.78 cents to make a 5-cent coin, losing $17.7 million in 2024. Dimes and quarters, though, are still profitable, costing 6 cents and 13 cents to make respectively. So for now, they're safe, but the nickel might be next on the chopping block if costs keep rising. Can the government really stop making pennies? You might be thinking, can President Trump just decide to end the penny? The answer is yes, but it's not that simple. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has the authority to decide which coins the Mint produces, so they can stop making pennies without needing Congress to act right away. However, Congress could make the decision permanent by passing a law. In fact, lawmakers from both parties, Republicans and Democrats, have been talking about this for years. Bills like the Make Sense Not Sense Act in the Senate and the Common Sense Act in the House have been proposed to ditch the penny, showing bipartisan support. Since 1989, at least 4 bills have tried to phase it out, but none passed. Until now, it seems the push is gaining steam. Why get rid of the penny? The pros. Let's look at why this is happening and what it could mean for you. First, the biggest reason to stop making pennies is to save money. Losing $85 million a year on pennies adds up, especially when the federal budget is already stretched thin. That's money that could go to Social Security, Medicare, or fixing roads. Robert Wapples, a professor who studied pennies in 2007, says they're not worth the trouble because our time is more valuable. With average U.S. wages at about $36 an hour, it takes just 1 second to earn a penny. If you spend more than a second picking up a penny or counting change, you're losing time and money. Another pro is that pennies aren't used much anymore. The Federal Reserve estimates there are 240 billion pennies in circulation, about 720 per American, but 60% of them are sitting in jars or lost under couch cushions. Many of us use credit cards or digital payments like Apple Pay, so pennies are less necessary. Countries like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand stopped making their pennies years ago, and their economies are fine. They round cash transactions to the nearest 5 cents, and people barely notice. For example, Canada ditched its penny in 2013, and studies show it saved the government millions without causing major problems. What are the downsides? Not everyone is on board with losing the penny. Some worry it could hurt people who rely on cash, especially lower-income folks, or those without bank accounts, called the unbanked or underbanked. About 5% of U.S. households are unbanked, according to the FDIC, and they use cash for most transactions. Rounding prices to the nearest 5 cents could mean paying a little more sometimes. For example, a Canadian study found that rounding added about $3 million a year to grocery costs because prices were often rounded up. While $3 million sounds big, it's tiny compared to Canada's economy, and most people didn't mind. Another argument for keeping the penny is that it's part of American tradition. Pennies have been around for over 230 years, since 1793, and some folks, like Mark Weller from Americans for Common Sense, say they're still useful. They argue that cash transactions are often faster than card payments, which can involve waiting for approvals or charity prompts. Plus, some worry that ending the penny could signal that inflation is out of control, making people feel like the government is giving up on keeping prices stable. How will this affect your wallet? Now let's talk about what this means for you, especially if you're retired or living on Social Security. First, rounding prices could slightly increase costs for cash purchases. If you buy something for $4.98, it might round up to $5, costing you an extra 2 cents. Over time, those cents add up, especially if you're on a fixed income like a pension or Social Security. However, digital payments, like debit cards or mobile apps, won't be rounded, so using a card could keep costs exact. Second, this change could affect your budget planning. If you're used to paying with cash, you might notice small price differences at stores, restaurants, or gas stations. For example, if you buy groceries for $19.97, it might round to $20. These small increases could stretch your budget thinner, especially if inflation keeps pushing prices up. In 2024, inflation was about 3%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and ending the penny might make it feel like prices are creeping higher. Third, the money saved from stopping penny production could help the government. That $85 million a year could go toward programs you rely on, like Social Security or Medicare, which take up over 60% of the federal budget. But there's a catch. If the government doesn't manage its budget well, those savings might not make it to your benefits. The U.S. national debt is $28.3 trillion, and interest payments ate up $880 billion in 2023. Every dollar counts, but only if it's used wisely. Have other coins been retired before? You might be wondering, has the U.S. done this before? The answer is yes. The U.S. has retired several coins when they stopped making sense. For example, the half-cent coin was discontinued in 1857 because inflation made it worthless. 2-cent coin faded away in the 1870s due to low use. The 3-cent coin was eliminated in 1889 because counting by threes confused people. The 20-cent coin was dropped in 1878 since it looked too much like a quarter. These coins are rare now and can be worth a lot to collectors. For instance, a 3-cent coin in good condition can sell for $20 or more on eBay. So if you have old coins in a drawer, check them out. They might be worth more than you think. Do you have any old coins stashed away? Let us know in the comments. Other countries have also ditched low-value coins. Canada stopped making pennies in 2013, Australia in 1992, and New Zealand even eliminated their 1, 2, and 5 cent coins. They round cash transactions to the nearest 5 or 10 cents, and digital payments stay exact. There's been no major chaos, no protests or rebellions. People adjusted, and life went on. What about the nickel? Here's a question to think about. Should we get rid of the nickel too? It costs 13.78 cents to make a 5-cent nickel, losing $17.7 million in 2024. That's a bigger loss per coin than the penny. If inflation keeps rising, the nickel could be next. Dimes and quarters are still profitable, but the nickel's high production cost is raising eyebrows. Some experts, like those at the Wall Street Journal, say that if we stop making pennies, the mint might need to produce more nickels, which could actually increase losses unless the nickel is phased out too. How can you prepare for this change? So, what can you do to protect your finances as the penny disappears? Here are some practical tips tailored for retirees and those on fixed incomes. Switch to digital payments when possible. Using a debit card, credit card, or mobile app like Venmo keeps prices exact, avoiding rounding. If you're not comfortable with digital payments, ask a family member or friend to help you set up a simple app. Many banks offer free debit cards tied to checking accounts, which are easy to use. Track your cash spending. If you prefer cash, keep an eye on small price changes due to rounding. For example, if a store rounds $4.98 to $5, that's 2 cents extra. Over a month of small purchases, it could add $1 to $2. Adjust your budget to account for these differences, especially for groceries or medications. Check your coin jars. Those pennies in your jar might become collectible over time. While most are worth just 1 cent now, some rare pennies, like a 1969 Lincoln penny, can be worth hundreds. Visit a coin dealer or check sites like PCGS.com to see if you have any treasures. Stay informed about budget changes. The money saved from pennies could help fund Social Security or Medicare, but only if the government prioritizes these programs. Check trusted sources like the Social Security Administration, SSA.gov, or the Congressional Budget Office, CBO.gov, for updates on benefits. What's the one thing you'd want the government to spend those savings on? Share in the comments. Plan for inflation. Inflation is a big reason the penny's value has faded. To protect your retirement savings, consider Treasury inflation-protected securities, TIPS, which adjust with inflation to keep your money's value steady. Talk to a financial advisor about TIPS or other investments that hold up in tough times. A hopeful look ahead. I know change can feel unsettling, especially when it's about something as familiar as the penny. But here's the good news. The U.S. has retired coins before, and other countries have ditched their pennies without a hitch. The savings from stopping penny production could help ease the strain on the federal budget, maybe even boosting programs you rely on. Plus, with fewer coins to carry, your wallet might feel a little lighter, in a good way. This change is also a chance to take control of your finances. By using digital payments, checking your coins, and staying informed, you can keep your retirement secure no matter what happens with the penny. How do you feel about saying goodbye to the penny? Are you ready to embrace a penny-free world? Or will you miss those little coins? Let's keep the conversation going. The end of the penny is more than just a small change. It's a sign of how inflation and costs are reshaping our economy. But you don't have to feel stuck. By understanding why the penny is going away, how it might affect your budget, and what steps you can take, you're already ahead. Keep your eyes on your Social Security, retirement savings, and everyday expenses. And don't be afraid to try new ways to pay or save. If this video helped you make sense of this change, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tips on Social Security, retirement planning, and money management. Share this with a friend who loves their penny jar or worries about their budget, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Will you miss the penny, or are you ready to let it go? Check out our other videos for more ways to protect your financial future, and we'll see you next time. Stay smart, stay safe, and take care.